Hello and welcome everyone to the Tech Sharmit podcast. Today I'm thrilled to introduce another special guest, David Woolbright, who is connecting us from United States of America. If I talk more about David, then he is an emeritus professor of computer science and a well-known IBM champion for Z systems. With decades of teaching experiences and a deep passion for IBM Assembler, David has built a remarkable reputation in both academic and mainframe communities. He is the creator of blog Punctilious Programmer, where he simplifies the complex technical topics, making them accessible and engaging for learners at all levels. So today we will dive into his journey and gain some of his insights. But before that, I'd like to thank David for joining us today in this episode. And now I request you to please initiate the discussion by telling us something about yourself.
Thanks, Amit. Thank you for the kind words. Uh, I've been involved with computing since college, really, back in the 70s. Um, Initially, I took a numerical analysis class, and as part of the class, we had to learn Fortran. And we programmed on punch cards and ran Fortran programs on a mainframe. So that was initially how I got started. Um, Eventually, I began teaching after finishing a PhD in mathematics at Auburn University in combinatorial mathematics, which is a discrete mathematics related to computing. And someone handed me an assembler book and said, "You have to teach this class." And it was difficult initially. I would study all day and come back into the classroom, and I could spout off everything I knew in about 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'd do it again and again. And so I've been involved with assembler since the very early 80s. And I've always found it fascinating. It keeps growing and growing. It's not the same language it was when I started. It's quite a different language. I've always been interested in programming languages. So I've taught programming languages many times. I've worked with more programming languages than I can remember, but I still keep coming back to assembler.
Okay.
So,
So Fortran was your first programming language, which you started in your early days, right?
uh, the first programming language I tackled was Fortran, and then after
Okay.
that, some basic on many computers at Emory University, and using paper tape, believe it or not, to record programs. Um, After that, Pascal, C++, Java.
Okay.
I like uh, I like Lisp flavored languages, especially. Um, so Scheme and Racket are two of my favorite languages to program in, although I still love to program in assembler as well.
Okay. And here I would like to ask one question. Let's say if someone asks you which programming language he or she can start in year 2024. So what would be your suggestion for the new programming language?
uh, Believe it or not, I think I would. I've never done this. I've never started a new student in a Lisp flavored language, but I think you could you could generate some interest by looking at a language like Racket,
Yeah.
uh, just to get started. But other than that, I think Java, C++, any object-oriented languages are probably a good choice. Um, Although I've started many students in assembler,
Okay.
it's probably not the best language to start in, but it is effective too. And
Yes.
people are pretty flexible. I think you can start with a variety of languages.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's talk bit about your blog, which is Punctilious Programmer. So could you please share like what it is all about? Because your blog Punctilious Programmer focuses on teaching IBM Assembler. We all know that. And like the way you present all those things related to IBM Assembler over that blog. So we just wanted to know like what inspired you initially to start this blog, and how do you approach to making such a technical subject engaging for your audience through this blogs?
Well, I, as I said, I've taught assembler for 40 something years. In the 90s, I began recording things, I believe, on video for video type classes, either tape or video.
Yeah.
And I began to see the importance of having things recorded on video uh, for face-to-face classes, even because students can come back and look at the material. And I retired in 2014, I think,
Okay.
and I had all of this material, just a wealth of material, and I hated to see it just lost. So I thought, well, maybe someone can use it if I put it out on a website. And so I've tried to put it out there in a way that's accessible. It's free to anyone that wants to use it. They're happy to have my notes or PowerPoints or written materials, um, just as a way to get it out there. We need more assembler programmers, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, those are very useful resources for all those like who wanted to learn something new and to start with assembler. So yeah, it helps a lot to those community.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, talk about bit about the IBM Champion, because you have been an IBM Champion for Z system from 2022 to 2024. So can you share like what this recognition mean to you and how it has shaped your work with the mainframe community?
Yeah, it sort of came out of the blue. I wasn't expecting that honor.
Okay.
Um, and it is an honor to be named a champion for IBM. There's a
Yeah.
lot of advantages to being a champion. IBM provides a lot of resources for you,
Yeah.
access to video and meetings with very high level folks in IBM.
Yeah.
They provide classes, conferences. So there's been a lot of advantage to being an IBM champion. Plus, I think it has made the website a little more visible to people. So it's something that I've always liked IBM and IBM products. I've always worked with them throughout my career. I think it's a great company, and
Yes, it is.
they've done a lot to try to connect with universities and students, especially now. So I'm thankful to be an IBM champion.
Okay. All right. And David, like if I talk about your student, so your student often mention your unique ability to make computer science and mathematics fun and accessible. So how do you find creative ways to present those complex technical concepts in a very digestible manner? Because this is something that your student always praise about you, that yes, David is has something unique and something special that he can share the knowledge in a very digestible manner for those complex topics.
Well, I think every teacher has to be a learner as
Yes.
well. You have to keep learning, or you shouldn't be a teacher. And I have the same problems that my students have in learning new material. I have similar problems. So I try to think about those and why I had problems with certain concepts and how to present them. Um, as far as teaching programming, one of the things I've always tried to do is come up with interesting programs that people want to write. So even though I have taught a lot of business programming
Yes.
students, I don't always give them business related programs to write. Sometimes they're mathematical puzzles or just things that I find interesting that touch on the topics I want them to learn and the aspects of a language that they need to play with. And so I think that's a good thing to do, is try to present a program that is inherently interesting to a person so that they want to work on it.
Okay. Okay. All right. And like you seem to have a keen ability to gauge the audience abilities and adjust your lessons accordingly, because the way you observe the thing, because as you mentioned, you have a good exposure and you have witnessed various changes throughout the technologies as well. So can you talk about your like how you have evolved your teaching style over the years to meet the needs of various different kind of learners?
I think the one big thing that helped a lot was beginning to record lectures on
Okay.
video. It helped my face-to-face classes. It helped my online classes. And it helped me because sometimes I'll go back and listen if I've
Yes.
forgotten something. Uh, assembler is a big topic. It's easy to, there's thousands of instructions. It's difficult to remember everything or how to how to do one particular um, concept or program. So I go back and look at them. That's helped a lot. Um, I like to give a lot of programs, so I think maybe not covering so much material in one shot and then having a program that is related to what was covered is a good thing. I think people actually don't learn a lot from listening so much to you as they do in sitting down and typing a program and getting arrows back and figuring out, oh, this works completely different than what I heard in class.
Yes.
So I think having lots of programs to work on, lots of small, almost exercises, not huge programs, but things that make them exercise certain muscles, certain aspects of the language is a good thing.
Okay. And during my research, I found that, and the thing which I found is very incredible, because uh, it's really very incredible that the class you co-lead between the thesis and the university still holds a reunion after 25 plus years. So, what do you think that contributed to the strong bond formed in that particular class, and how it? What do you think? Like, how important is community building in technical learning environments?
Well, TSYS was a credit card transaction processing company in
Okay.
my local city, Columbus, Georgia. They're now Global Payments, but they came to our university and asked for help. They wanted training in programming because they just couldn't hire enough people. Specifically, they wanted mainframe skills in assembler, COBOL, JCL, IMS, DB2. Those are the skills we settled on. So we this program was very interesting. We created a special program just for this company. We would train 8 hours a day. I would go in and teach for 2 or 3 hours in the morning and 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon and work with people one on one. We had from 50 to 100 students in each class. Um, the students that came to us were had to give up jobs, and they came from all walks of life, from musicians, car
Okay.
mechanics, to PhDs in psychology. We had, and most of the people that came into the program had to give up a job or give up something. So they were very committed to being successful. This program was highlighted in our state. Vice President of the United States, Al Gore, actually came to our university, came to my classroom and interviewed us, talked with us, gave a speech that day. It was a big deal and it was, we're trying to highlight how universities could embrace companies, local companies, and that's what we did in this program. It changed hundreds of lives. We trained probably 1,500 programmers over 10 years. It was an excellent program, and it was life changing. And the people involved really went through an experience together. You know, we challenged them. There was a lot of programs that we wrote over 6 months,
Okay.
8 hours a day. And so I think that was a bonding experience for everyone, myself included. So we have had some reunions over the years. There's still people working at TSYS or Global Payments that came through our programs. And almost every day I'll meet someone that was in one of those classes. So it's fun to have done that.
Okay. All right. And with your deep experience in both computer science and mathematics, what do you think, like, what are the most common challenges students face while learning the coding, and like how you help them to overcome those kind of obstacles?
I've always thought that anybody could learn how to program.
Yeah.
They might not become the best programmer in the world, but they could learn to be proficient.
Mm.
And I've always approached my classes in that way, that everyone could learn. Um, and that's made me want to create programs that are interesting. I think the main difficulty for most people, or the people that aren't successful, is they genuinely aren't interested in it.
Okay.
So I've tried to come up with ideas and ways to make it fun, make it interesting to everyone, to inspire them. When I think back to my own experience, my first computer that I had at home was an Apple II Plus, and just the just pulling it out of the box and thinking, I have a computer. I can't
Okay.
believe it. It was an amazing experience for me, a transformative experience to be able to work on a computer and to dig in and figure out how it does what it does. So in my own life, I've always been just completely blown away by computers, how they work, and the chance to work on them. I still feel that way when I'm writing assembler programs. It's still fun, and I'm always amazed at what IBM comes up with, new instructions for
Yeah.
doing things differently in a way that's better than what existed before. So I think that's the main problem for people trying to learn is having a sense of excitement about it.
Yes.
And I've tried to generate that in my classes. I don't know if it's possible, but um, if you're excited about something, you're going to learn it.
Yes.
There's not going to be, there's nothing going to hold you back if you're excited and find it interesting.
Correct. I completely agree with you that if you are if you have those excitement to learn something new and something challenging, then for sure it helps you to learn new things every day because that is the excitement only that help us to motivate and to grab the new things on a regular basis.
That's right. That's right. I think it's the most important thing.
Yes, yes,
It's
it is
what motivates you to learn. And if you're motivated, you will learn.
for sure. Okay. And David, like you have seen multiple generations of student come through your classes. So how have you observed the in the field of computer science education change over the years, and what future trends do you think that will impact how we teach it nowadays?
One of the most exciting changes, I think, has been in the way women have come into the field. When I first started, it was all of my classes were all male,
Okay.
and it happened to be that way for several years. But over time, we began to see more and more women come into the field. And I think that's exciting and something we need. It makes the field better. Um,
Yes.
that's one of the big changes. I think as time has gone along, certainly students have become more accustomed to looking things up on the internet than there were earlier. There's more opportunity to find the right things that could help you write a program or examples of programs. So I think students have become certainly more proficient at searching for information on the web. that would be the second thing I think has changed about students. Other than that, I think we're all pretty much the same as when I started. We all have the same problems. We
Yeah.
make the same errors. Uh, yeah.
Okay. And during the research, we also found that you have a talent of linking theory to the real world applications. So, could you share an example like how you have done this in your teaching, particularly with IBM Assembler? Because it's a common thing that we heard about you, that you link all those typical complex things with those real life examples and real life scenarios. So, please share something about that.
Yeah, well, I've always been interested in data structures
Mm-hmm.
and programming languages, trying to get the most out of a programming language, finding the corners of the language that we can exploit somehow. Um, so just trying to get people to um, use languages in a certain way. Um, tell me what was the original question again? Give me just a brief.
Yeah,
Uh,
the question is like you have a, as we all know that you have a talent of linking theory to real life world examples.
yeah, I started with the programming with data structures, and when I
Mhm.
first started working with companies and business data processing, um, I was kind of amazed that, um, especially in assembler, there were no one was using data structures. Basically, it
Okay.
was all just flat files and reading files in, processing a record, and putting it out. Um, and so no one really made use of data structures. So that's one thing I'm interested in, trying to get people to use data structures in assembler. Um, I want to write some material about that and maybe develop some more sophisticated data structures that can be used in assembler and include it in a more advanced book than the one I've already written.
All right. Okay, so David, we all know that you are playing a role of mentors for many of us, whether it's students or the developers. They always get inspiration from your journey and from your life. But we would love to hear more about your mentors. So, looking back at your career, have there been any colleagues or maybe the mentors whose collaboration not only enhanced your professional growth but also made your journeys enjoyable?
Yeah, I'll name a couple. The first I would have to name is uh, Dr. C.C. Lindner, Lindner. He was my thesis advisor for my PhD.
Okay.
He is a world-class mathematician, very well known, hundreds of papers, and the most amazing teacher. He really did have the ability to explain difficult concepts, and he did it in a way that was enjoyable and funny. He was a funny man,
Yeah.
and so going to class was just a real treat. And watching him teach, learning from his experience changed me as a teacher, made me want to be more interesting as a teacher and trying to bring in some humor and some interesting topics to whatever class I was teaching. So I would have to name C.C. Linder. The other person I would name is Paul Newton, who is a famous IBMer. Lots of people know Paul. I met Paul through IBM's outreach program to universities and students. He was involved in Master the Mainframe. I've taken classes from Paul. His knowledge of IBM mainframes is amazing. I wish I had half his knowledge. Uh, and he's been so very willing to share his expertise with anyone who calls, particularly in the academic world. So I would name Paul Newton as the second person.
Okay. All right. So like we have talked lot of thing related to the technical and the professional thing. But now I would like to ask my last question, and it is related to the hobbies. So, what hobbies or interests do you pursue outside of your professional career that makes you feel motivated and inspired?
Well, I've always played golf. Since my
Okay.
early days in graduate school, I've always played golf. And what appeals to me about this sport is it's all a mental game. Whatever you think is what happens on the in your golf swing. And so I love to walk and play golf and think about my swing and how it could be better and how what I'm thinking really does affect what happens on the golf course. The other more recent hobby I have, when I was a young man, like in college, I wanted to be a writer, but I just couldn't see any way to do that and make a living. Um, Plus, I don't think I had the experience to 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 be an interesting writer at that point. But since I've retired, I've returned to that original desire. I've become a writer, and I'm writing novels, mysteries. Um, here's one of them. It's called
Okay.
The Elvis Bird, and it's about an ornithologist who's looking for ivory-billed woodpeckers and stumbles over a murder in the swamps of the Okefenokee, which is a huge swamp in southern Georgia. I've written a second one, a sequel to it called The Golden Bird.
Okay.
They're both on Amazon. If you're interested in ornithologists, mysteries, um, if you like birds or have even a passing interest in birds or ornithology, and you like mysteries, you might enjoy it. They are available on Amazon. So I'm writing a third novel now. I spend a lot of my time doing that. I'm also working on a second assembler book,
Okay.
which will cover more advanced topics.
And prior to that, like, have you also authored any book related to assembler as well?
Well, I wrote the Big Blue Assembler book. That's the
Okay.
only book I've written. Um, it came out of initially the writings that I did at TSIS as I was writing page after page of what each instruction did and handing them out with examples. Um, and eventually I had the idea of kind of wrapping all that material together, presenting it in a way that would be like sitting in my class, essentially in the same order that I would do it in class. That's probably the best thing I did was to finally, after 4 years, 40 years of doing this, found a sequence of topics that made sense and were accessible. So I tried to do that with the Big Blue Assembler book. And the next one will probably be called the Deep Blue Assembler book, which means it's a little more advanced than the first one. We'll cover some topics that are couldn't be done in, say, COBOL, things like that.
Here, I would say that not only with your professional work, but with your hobbies also, you are contributing a lot to the society by writing those novels, interesting novels, and the books which you have written related to mainframe and uh, assembler. So that is something very special about you.
Well, thank you. It's a joy, really. After 40 years of working, it's a joy to actually come back to my original idea of being a writer and trying to produce a book. So it's been fun.
Okay. So yeah, thank you so much, David, for joining us in this episode and for sharing a lot of information related to assembler and those special books which everyone can learn in order to enhance their skills and to read about those novels. So thank you once again for joining us, and I hope you also enjoyed the discussion. So thank you.
I did. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to be on. That was an honor in itself. And I've enjoyed trying to get to know you a little bit and especially enjoyed being on today.
Thank you.